Thank you very much, Senator. Senator Van Hollen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank all of you for your testimony. Mr. Schwagel, I just want to ask you a question about the share of revenue as a percent of GDP. Isn't it the case that the last time we had a balanced budget in this country, the share of revenue to GDP was approximately 19 to 20%?
That's right, in the late 90s in the Clinton administration.
Right. I don't think there's anything immutable about 18% revenues as a share of GDP. In fact, we know mathematically if we increase taxes on very, very wealthy people, we will be able to increase our share of revenue as a percent of GDP. Mr. Goss, you are the undisputed expert when it comes to Social Security and the numbers, and a respected one. Could you just, and you may have said this, but for the record, what will the cut be if we do nothing to Social Security, and when will it happen?
If we do not act and the trustees' intermediate assumptions follow through, as of 2033, the Old Age and Survivors Insurance Program will at that point deplete its reserves. The trust fund will still be there. It won't be exhausted or whatever. It'll deplete its reserves. Continuing income will be sufficient to, at that point, continue paying 77% of benefits. That's a long way from running out of money and no benefits, but it's far short of what people are expecting.
Right. So you're saying it would be a 23% benefit cut?
At that point.
At that point in time. And I understand that both you and Mr. Schwagel have already stated, which seems like pretty simple math, that in order to avoid those cuts, we either need more revenue into the program or you'd need some combination of structured cuts and revenue into the program. I just want to make sure all of our other witnesses agree that that is a mathematical fact, starting with you, Ms. Romig.
I agree. I agree.
Yes.
Thank you. So then the question is, how do we get there? And I think the chairman pointed out earlier that when President Biden gave his State of the Union address, one of the lines where he got a standing ovation was where he said we're not going to cut Social Security benefits. I haven't seen any proposal from our Republican colleagues on how to make sure that we prevent this 23% cut in about a decade. I have seen proposals from the chairman, Mr. Whitehouse, Senator Sanders, and others, and I support those proposals. But just to my colleagues, with respect to making tough political choices, you can't have a dialogue and debate without everybody putting their positions on the table on Social Security. So folks may disagree with the proposals that have been put forward, but we welcome looking at alternative proposals, and I do not believe that assigning this responsibility to some commission that acts behind closed doors is the way to do it, because in my experience, that does not avoid the fundamental challenge, which is the question of political will, ultimately, to get it done. I do agree with points that were made earlier about we need a lot of options on the table. Another revenue option that I put forward in the past was to take the estate tax back to where it was in 2009 as part of the Bush tax cuts. And I would propose dedicating some of those revenues to the purpose of shoring up Social Security, which is not a revolutionary idea. It's an idea that was supported by Bob Ball, the longest serving member of the Social Security Commission, supported by Nancy Altman, the president of Social Security Works, and supported by Thomas Paine, who launched this idea even before we had Social Security, saying, quote, "It is from overgrown acquisition of property that the fund will support itself," meaning a fund to support seniors as they retire. So I would just ask in closing if I could ask you, Ms. Hanauser, just to comment quickly on the estate tax as a source of revenue generally, and to debunk the idea that if we go back to that proposal, that middle class folks would suffer, and in fact it would just be folks who are very well off, right?
Thank you very much. People can now inherit $22 million tax-free through our estate tax, and they can inherit far more than that through clever use of trusts. So I would agree entirely that that is a right place to look for revenue.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank all of you.